Beating around the bush. A question? It's still the public workshop.
It is. Call to order the workshop for the Common Council meeting, December 5th, 2017 at 5 p.m. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams?
Here.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Here.
Councilmember Gonzalez? Here. Councilmember Shikawa?
Here.
Councilmember at Large Wilson.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Since this is a workshop session, we'll skip over certification of the prior meetings. We'll skip over reading of the privilege of the floor regulations. We'll skip over privilege of the floor. We'll jump to communications from the mayor, including disapproval messages. Mayor, do you have anything you'd like to share with us at this time?
We have the representative from Department of Environmental Conservation who is here with us. He was invited to be here to clarify any questions that council members may have reference to the article that was in the Observer on Sunday on the Lucas Avenue project. Maurice Moore is an engineer with the Department of Environmental Conservation, and he's willing to answer any questions that you guys may have.
Do any of you council have any questions for him?
What he's told me is that after the article, I did reach out to him. He says the article is a bit inaccurate. The property will be marketable to be developed for both commercial and industrial.
For clarification purposes, the mayor is referring to the article in Sunday's newspaper that was talking about the Altech site on Lucas Avenue and the tone with which the article spoke about the usability of the land. Is that correct, Mayor?
That's right.
Okay. Luis, is there anything you would like to share with us? Instead of us nitpicking through the whole entire article and asking you a million questions about the validity and truth of the content of the article?
I would just like to say that, as I told the mayor, the construction of the site is entering what we call it's in the end phase. We're going to do a inspection, to do a punch list item. There are certain things that have to still be done at the site. We have to seed the site. We have to put asphalt paving in places. But by and large, everything has been done according to the contract. We removed contamination from that site, and while it is true, according to the article, there was more contamination than there was initially thought. That is not unusual at all in remediation like this. We go out, we sample to find contamination using drill rigs and borings. They're 2-inch diameter, and if it shows that there's contamination there, we try to dig it out. And once we get digging, we do confirmation sampling of all these holes that we have dug, and it determines if we have met our goals. At the Lucas Avenue site, we were looking at cleaning up this site to commercial reuse. So what we did is we took anything that exceeded our Part 375 cleanup numbers, and we removed those sources. Those sources were removed down to almost commercial. To sometimes they're not quite commercial. It's a difference. You weigh the difference, and you say, okay, we've got as far as we can. Then to make it protective for commercial reuse, we put a 1-foot cover of soil over top of it, so there's no incidental contact with industrial soils. So that way, if a trespasser goes on there, they're fine. There's not going to be a problem. This is not a type of material that widely travels. It was all metals, metal dust, chromium, lead. There's some arsenic. There was arsenic there that was slightly above our numbers. Our number for arsenic is the same for commercial as it is for industrial. And that's one of the reasons, the most important reason we put the cover on the site. So, can it be reused? Certainly. It can be reused. There's a site management plan that will tell how, treat the soils once it's dug out. There is an environmental easement on the property. The easement travels, like I was telling the mayor, travels with the land, so that no matter who purchases this property, forever and a day, unless the Department of Environmental Conservation says so, this will remain on this property. And that says, if you take this property and redevelop it, you will follow this site management. Now, whenever you do a title search, that'll show up every time. That won't be extinguished by anybody. There was a talk, can this be used for recreational activities, soccer fields, basketball courts? No. It was cleaned up to commercial. If it was cleaned up to restricted residential, then you could use it for that. This is more suitable for activities. You could put a Wilson Farms on it. You could put a Tim Hortons on it. You could put a MASH unit on it, or one of the urgent cares. You can do that. Doctor's offices, anything like that. But it's not intended for residential or active recreation. People say, well, why didn't you take it down to residential? Because when we approach these projects, we look at what is the most anticipated best end use. And in this case, being next to the high-speed rail, we figured that this would never be reused for residential. Who's going to put their house back up against the high-speed rail? That's pretty much where we're at. Like I said, Friday, we're going to do the inspection for substantial completion of the project. The contractor will be back out in the spring. We'll do a seeding, grading, asphalt. We figure that by June 29th, the entire project will be complete. Where does that leave that? One thing that was in the article is, contrary to popular belief, the DEC doesn't lend land. We don't lease property. This property is still in the hands of the former owner, Realco Incorporated. Realco is a one-man operation that was solely charged with taking care of a trust fund that had went out of, extinguished years ago. That's why the state could step in. He was willing to stay on to install the environmental easements, which is a big help to us. Quite honestly, I would think that with Willowbrook Pond being cleaned up and Lucas Avenue being cleaned up, his fiduciary responsibility is probably over, and I would imagine he will petition the court to be released from his duties. Or however that goes. He just may go, I understand that the project's in REM, the property's in REM, and that might be an opportunity for either the city or the county to look at that, or what would be your liability, or what would be restrictions to doing an in-REM procedure. People could squat. To be honest with you, the state involvement from here on out is we will keep an eye on that. We'll make sure that ATVs don't go in and tear it up, and the cap doesn't get tore up, and things like that. And we will sample the groundwater on a regular basis going forward. And that's pretty much where we're going to be at. We were kind of concerned about the rail line, so that's why we put the fence up. And the fence is going up we don't want someone just to run up on that track. So that's about it.
Thank you. Any council members have any questions?
I do.
You said it can't be used for recreational, let's say a basketball court or stuff like that. So in essence, you're saying that it can't be used for let's say a sport complex.
Active, can't be used for active recreation.
No active recreation at all.
Right.
Oh, what if it was like an enclosed gymnasium? That's what you
Right,
meant,
an
something like that.
enclosed building for sports, like a YMCA or something like that.
That might be a different story, because I believe something like that would be considered commercial. You would be inside a building,
Yes.
you wouldn't be outside on the land. Now, to make it active recreation, if you wanted to come in and put another foot of cover over it, to make a 2-foot difference, then it could be used for active recreation.
So what you're saying, in order to be used for a sports type activity, it would need another cap of about 2 feet?
If you're just gonna be on the ground itself,
Right.
like you said, like a YMCA
Right.
or a sports complex.
Outdoor recreation activity.
Right.
If it were indoor recreation activity, there's a possibility we could just do that. Possibility.
Outdoor.
Possibility.
As it is.
I might like to know where the initial information came from that the article was printed. If that's incorrect, how was that able to happen?
Councilman, I can answer that. It's my fault. Councilman Romano asked me about recreation. That was the only thing we talked about. I said, no, it cannot, in my understanding, it cannot be used for active recreation. Maurice and I agree on that. If I misled anybody to say that because it couldn't be used for active recreation, it couldn't be used for anything, then I apologize. I didn't mean to do that. Maurice and I agree. We've been on this project for a long time. It was never intended to be for active recreation, so it kind of caught me by surprise that that was the council's intention to make soccer fields there and basketball courts, because it had never been part of the plan. So I apologize for not knowing that.
Back me up on this one?
And so I spoke about recreation. I did not speak about, I said that Maurice and I had talked about expanding the street thing there, which is also commercial. Anything like that, a lumber yard, all that stuff can be done. But soccer fields and things like that, it's not cleaned up to that level for that type of activity. So that was my answer. If it was misunderstood or I wasn't clear about that, then I apologize.
So will there be some type of retraction or a corrective article for the public's sake so they know what's going on more than the people that are inside this room, since we're speaking about it at a workshop instead of the council meeting?
Nicole?
Marty?
When that got brought up about Lucas Avenue, it was at a DPW meeting. The only reason I brought anything up about recreation, because I was told at the meeting that it couldn't be used for commercial or residential or industrial. So then I went on to say, what about recreation? That's why I brought it up. And the first thing I said before I went on to recreation was, I was under the understanding it was gonna be commercial and industrial. Did you get a different picture than what I got?
No, I got the same picture you got. I don't think that the Observer was wrong in reporting what they did, because they reported what we were told at the meeting. And, I left that DPW committee meeting thinking that the best we could ever put there is a parking lot.
Correct. That's how I left it.
And I'm assuming that's incorrect.
That's incorrect.
Okay.
And I did get a hold of Mr. Moore on Sunday, once I saw the article. I gave him a call. I want to know what was going on. And thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You were very detailed over the phone, and I appreciate it.
Just, Mr. Moore, so you could explain to folks who don't quite understand the difference between the different levels of remediation and the difference between a residential and
we all
commercial, because, again, there was some reference made to Love Canal, and I think of Hickory Woods, and those are distinguishable projects, because those were residential projects right adjacent or on top of formerly industrial manufacturing. And if you could just distinguish this type of project, this level of remediation from those types of projects, just so people have a better understanding of it.
I think that the big difference is the type of sites that those were. I know Love Canal gets mentioned all the time, and like I told the councilman, I've been in this job for 33 years. My first 10 I was the on-site geologist operator at Love Canal. Love Canal was a dump site. It was what we call a dump site. There were many chemicals, approximately 228 chemicals that were dumped in there in barrels, drums. They were liquid, solids, and they were dumped into this ditch, covered up and allowed to sit there. And everybody thought it was safe because it was entombed in a clay sarcophagus, so to speak. Obviously it wasn't. And at Altec was an industry. It was a plant. Probably everybody's relatives worked there at one time. There was no liquid operations except for when they took wire and they dipped it in, to chrome the wire, to clean the wire. They used, I believe it was, I know they used a hot sodium bath. At one time they used a hot barium bath to clean and pickle the material, the steel. Anytime you do that, you have accidental spillage, that type of thing. What we call drag out. It drips, drums spill. It's not a dump. I mean, people they don't intentionally waste when they're in an industry like that, but it happens. I mean, and you'll have chromium, you have lead from your batteries. There was some volatiles that we took out, TCE, that was used to clean the steel. But so as far as that kind of thing, it's not the same type of site. This material wasn't widespread. They didn't dump it all over the neighborhood. It's incidental and it's on the site. There is a groundwater impact that goes right across the street. When we did the excavations, we found a pipe that went right across into that area. What we will do is, because we dug all this, what we thought was the source out, we will monitor that plume. And it's not extensive, it's just right across the street around that telephone pole. We will monitor that and address it appropriately in a couple of years. That was always the intent of the record of decision. But there's 4 levels of cleanup. The 4 levels, there's industrial. That allows any reuse for industrial. Probably the remainder of the plant itself, we will look at that and say, okay, can this be used for industrial purposes? Which it will be. There's commercial, which is the next one, next cleanup. That's what this can be used for, commercial and industrial. There's restricted residential. Restricted residential is more for apartments, multi-use. And then there's residential. It can be used for residential. And actually there is 5, because there's one called unrestricted, which can be used for anything. We try to get to the best that we can, but everybody knows there's limitations. Like I said, this was an orphan site left to the taxpayers, and we have to, you really take into say, we have this $6 million was spent on this last construction. We spent 2.5 before, when they tore a portion of everybody knows we tore the portion of the building down. That was $2.5 million. So we're right around $8.5 million into just that plant. Willowbrook Pond was 6.5, closer to 7 million. And there's other things that we still have to do. We're still going to look at the stream, the unnamed tributary, and the plant proper itself.
Thank you.
Councilman? if I
Yes,
could-
Randy.
Yeah, if, I certainly didn't intend to mislead you. I gave you the information that as I understood it, Councilman. so I'm glad that we have Maurice here. I think I suggested that we have Maurice here at the next DPW, we accelerated that. So I didn't, I knew less about it than I did. I did not intend to mislead you in any way, shape, or form. I'm glad that I was wrong. So I apologize for that, and I'm glad you corrected me on that. It's a complicated project. Maurice, I would think you'd agree with that. That it's hard for anybody to understand this in detail. What caught my attention are certain things, but I suggested that maybe the street department use that. That's a concept that Maurice and I had talked about, saying that would be fine. So anything like that, so I kind of probably contradicted myself. I said it can be used for this and then not that, so I think I was confused myself, and I apologize for being confused about it. It's a complicated project. I'm glad that it can be used for more than what I initially thought. So I sincerely apologize for any kind of misleading, and will do anything I can to correct that. I'm glad we got the correct understanding out there.
Council, any further questions?
No.
I have one from Mark. He mentioned that the property is possibly in rem. I know years ago, if the municipality, the city of Dunkirk, was interested in a property that was about to go up for tax foreclosure auction, that there was a relationship between the municipality and the county where the county would
Correct.
hold that
Yes.
property. Does that relationship and procedure still exist?
As far as I know, yes.
It does.
Yes.
So if it is,
it's a potential,
if it is truly
If the
going in
city
rem, there is a
wants-
possibility for the
It
city to
showed interest.
become the next owner.
yes. Yeah.
If they so choose. Okay, thank you for the clarification. Well, aside from a big misunderstanding and maybe some hurt feelings, let's keep in mind that this is good news, guys.
Yeah,
Because
me
it's
too.
not as
Right.
bad as what the article said on
Right.
Sunday. Anything else, Mayor? And thank you very much for coming. It was a great deal of help. Any other thing you'd like to bring, Mayor?
No, that's it.
No? Number 6, communications from the public and petitions.
Notice of claim from Bonnie Orchard for alleged injury sustained from a fall on the sidewalk at Third Street and Swan Street on October 3rd, 2017.
I will make my motion to the law department. Need a first? Councilman
second.
Williams, second. Councilwoman Shukawa. Number 7, reports of standing committees, boards, and commissions. Mr. Williams, nothing. Mr. Gonzalez, nothing at this time. Mr. Romano, Ms. Shukawa, nothing. Any department heads have anything they'd like to report at this time? Seeing nothing, we'll move on to unfinished business, which we don't have any. Pre-filed resolutions, number 114.
114, resolution authorizing the ratification of agreement between the City of Dunkirk and the United Steelworkers, Paper and Forestry, Rubber Manufacturing, Energy, Allied Industrial, and Services Workers International Union, AFL-CIO, CLC Union 2693 COD for January 1, 2011 through December 31st, 2020.
Any discussion during the workshop, council? Seeing none, we'll move on to 115.
Resolution authorizing budget line modifications for fiscal year 2017.
Any discussion, council?
I had one, but we addressed it, we got a new copy. of
Okay. With the updated copy?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 116.
Resolution authorizing agreement to provide drug alcohol testing, Lanford testing, and consulting.
Any discussion, council? Number 117.
A resolution authorizing grant application, Restore New York Communities Initiative.
Any discussion, council? Seeing none, new business?
I'd like to make a motion to meet in executive session to discuss the collective negotiations pursuant to Article 14 of the Civil Service Law. It is expected that no new business will be taken after the executive session.
I need a second on that motion. Mr. Bamanto, clerk call the roll for executive session.
Councilmember Williams. Aye. Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez. Councilmember Chakawa.
Aye.
Councilmember Elijah Wilson.
Aye. We are now going to go into executive session, so if everybody could please Statement for legal notice, Restore New York grant application. The City of Dunkirk plans to submit a Round 5 Restore New York Communities Initiative grant application. The goal of Restore New York is to revitalize urban centers. The funds are meant to attract individuals, families, industry, and commercial enterprises to the municipality. Specifically, the city will be working with one vacant property located at 23-25 Lakeshore Drive East, Dunkirk, New York, 14048. The building is approximately 12,000 square feet and has a commercial use in nature. It is proposed that the building will be rehabilitated for mixed-use purposes. The city will be holding a public hearing for the project on December 5th at 5:30 p.m. Unfortunately, we had to bump that to 5:55 prior to the council meeting to discuss the Restore New York application. At this time, is there anybody wishing to speak on the public hearing for the Restore New York grant application? Please step forward to the microphone, state your name and address. Last opportunity. Does anybody wish to speak during the public hearing portion for the Restore New York grant application? Please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Moving right along. Call to order the Common Council meeting December 5th, 2017 at 5:56 p.m. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams. Here. Councilmember Vimanto. Here. Councilmember Gonzalez. Here. Councilmember Shikawa. Here. Councilmember at-large Vorship.
Present. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Certification of the prior meetings.
Not in my packet. Not in the packet.
Michelle typed them up. She must have left them in the last. I'm sorry.
Okay. Do I have a chance to-
Can we entertain a motion from the council to dispense with the minutes from the last meeting? Councilman Williams, the second. Councilman Vimanto. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Vimanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Vorship.
Aye. Reading of the privilege of the floor regulations.
The privilege of the floor shall be extended to any person appearing for themselves, in which case the individual shall be limited to 3 minutes, and to any person representing a group who shall be limited to 5 minutes. When recognized, please stand and state your name and address. The city clerk shall have the duty of maintaining such time limits, and the councilman at large may determine in his discretion whether individuals are speaking for themselves or representing groups. Councilman at large volition shall maintain good order and may require any speaker to cease speaking if remarks are made in bad taste or are slanderous or non-germane to any action taken or contemplated by council. The time limits specified above shall be strictly adhered to, except that a speaker may be allowed to complete a statement or thought started before such time has expired.
Privilege of the floor is now open. If anybody wishes to speak, please step forward to the podium and state your name and address.
John McCowiak, 46 Otter Street, Dunkirk, New York.
And Valerie McCowiak, 46 Otter Street, Dunkirk, New York.
I would like to express my concern about the unopened street behind the Otter Street properties being given to the Battery Point developers without notifying the owners of the properties bordering this street. If this street is being given away, it would be appreciated if equal shares of the street be given to the developers and the property owners that would be given each 33 feet. If the land reserved for the street was shared, it would give continuity to all the properties on the east side of Otter Street, which, since the homeowners from Lakeshore Drive to Pine Street already own 33 feet of that street. Now, I have a tax map showing that.
You look at the blue highlighted line.
The map shows the blue highlighted line. At this time of year, it would be appreciated, it would be a good gesture, a goodwill gesture to share the street with the Otter Street homeowners and the Battery Street developers. The property now has been taken care of by the Otter Street homeowners for years. This administration seems to be trying to eliminate all landlocked city-owned properties. The Battery Point developers have enough land, and they don't need the 33 feet of that unopened street that would be given to the Otter Street property owners. Another concern of mine is the rainwater. If you came down to Otter Street after a rainstorm, and it doesn't have to be heavy rain, you'd see that the water that flows from not only Otter Street but Ounce Street flows over to this unopened Pine Street. And it's supposedly supposed to drain down Pine Street, so I've been told by previous city engineers. Unfortunately, for some reason, it doesn't run down Pine Street like it apparently is supposed to, and it puddles up on Pine Street and creates a situation where the water remains and becomes stagnant. If the developers were to get this unopened street, it deeply gives me concern in regards to this water problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. McCoyak. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward and state your name and address.
James Zimba, 82 Otter Street. This gentleman touched on the drainage on Otter Street. If you remember correctly, about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, we had a torrential downpour. I was called regarding water on that street, and the pipe that is on the southbound, or the south side of 82 Otter Street between me and Ronnie McCoyak is really rough shape. At the telephone pole right there at the road, you can see where the pipe is deteriorating. It's like a 36-inch pipe in there. There's a gaping hole in there right now that rotted through. That has been put in many, many, many years ago. And it's galvanized, and it held up well. The water that is running from where they're going to put up this complex over there, this drainage has to be taken care of before that construction is actually in the process. The street was a mess. After dark, when that rain came down through there, and even Lakeshore Drive, where the old Quickfill was, there was police officers that had to shut Route 5 down because it was flooded, where the old Quickfill was. What I'm getting at is, not only do we have a problem on Otter Street, we have a problem on Lakeshore Drive where the water doesn't have no place really to go right now. Now you develop over there behind 82 Otter Street, it's going to compound even worse. Where's all this water going to go? Now, I was out at the roadside at the culvert, and that pipe was at maximum capacity with water coming down through there, and it was just going wherever it could go. When I was at your last meeting, when we were talking about all this building going on up there, I addressed the drainage up there, and I was just wondering if you had any input or what the Army Corps of Engineers if they did any studies on this, or,
I'm actually going to ask Randy to speak to this matter during the reports of standing committees.
that's all I got. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address.
Cassandra Lane at 78 West Second Street. Where I live by Second and Swan Street. I've been smelling gas a lot. What should I do about the gas leak in that neighborhood?
If you smell gas, you should definitely call National Fuel.
I don't have to, okay.
Okay? Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward and state your name and address.
I guess this is the time to speak if I don't fall over. My name is James Bickart. I'm president of the SOAR unit of the Retirees for the United Steelworkers America. I'm here to commend Mayor Roses and Human Resources Director Vicki Westling and the council, and especially Don Williams and Marty Bomano, and the membership of Local 2693 who works here in City Hall. I understand that the contract was ratified by the membership and it's coming to vote for ratification here at the council meeting. It's been 7 long years of back and forth, and like I said, there was a lot of people involved in it. They put a lot of extra effort into it, and I really thank those people. On behalf of John Taddeo, the president of our local union, and everybody else involved, and I hope you give it due consideration when it comes for ratification by the council. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bickert. Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address. Anybody else wishing to speak, please step forward, state your name and address. Last opportunity. Anybody else wishing to take advantage or privilege of the floor, please step forward and state your name and address. Seeing none, privilege of the floor is now closed. Communications from the mayor, including disapproval messages.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a few announcements and also a proclamation I would like to have read here this evening. Just wanted to update council members on the project at the Point. Work is continuing. We're making really good progress there. It looks like everything is on target. We also had a groundbreaking at the wastewater treatment plant, reference to the $10 million project there, and everything is going very well there. The engineers are doing an excellent job there. And also the groundbreaking at Howard Street for the bridge. We just had that this week, and I also just want to commend our DPW director, Randy Woodbury, for the hard work, time, and effort that he's put in on these last 2 projects. That being said, there is someone here this evening who was very helpful. The city received a lot of recognition. In fact, Governor Cuomo was out in Puerto Rico making announcements with a member of National Grid from Western New York. The city of Dunkirk was actually mentioned out in San Juan, Puerto Rico, on some of the efforts that we push forth for that relief. And the person from Utah is here this evening. Her name is Tammy Baraka Will. She was actually the person who contacted us to ensure that we had the medical supplies, $315,000 worth, to push to Puerto Rico for the relief effort. So if she could come up, I would like to have our special events coordinator, Hector Rosas, who was instrumental in making this relief effort happen. If he could come up and join her so he could read a proclamation, I'd appreciate it.
My honor to be able to present to you from Globus Relief International. It's an international charity company. They are all over the world and we've helped many different countries this year alone. We were very fortunate to have been able to work in collaboration through the efforts of Mayor Rosas and Tammy Brecka-Will. And I'd like for you to give her a warm welcome here to our city. Dunkirk, please. And before I let her say a few words, I'd like to take the time to read the proclamation that the mayor of the city of Dunkirk has issued, Mayor Rosas. So the proclamation reads as such. City of Dunkirk, New York, Office of the Mayor issues this proclamation, whereas Ms. Tammy Brecka-Will, philanthropist for Globus Relief, has been instrumental in the acquisition and delivery of over $315,000 in medical supplies to the hurricane-ravaged island and United States territory of Puerto Rico. And whereas she is continuing to work with City of Dunkirk Special Events Coordinator Hector Rosas to further the reach of Globus Relief into the city to provide additional services for our displaced hurricane victims. And whereas her support and partnership with the City of Dunkirk have made Globus Relief an invaluable friend to the displaced children and people of Puerto Rico. Now therefore, I, Wilfred Rosas, Mayor of the City of Dunkirk, do hereby proclaim Tuesday, December 5th, 2017 as Globus Relief Day in the City of Dunkirk and encourage all residents to recognize and thank Tammy Brecka-Will and Globus Relief for the continued generosity and giving to the children who are relocating to our area. In witness thereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Dunkirk, New York to be affected to this document this 30th day of November, reflecting December 5th, 2017 as Globus Relief Day. Tammy, from the Mayor of Dunkirk, New York, my pleasure to hand that to you. Tell the City of Dunkirk a little bit about your company.
First of all, I'd like to thank the mayor and the council and Hector for their kindness. They have such a lot on their plate, and I know what it takes to make a city work, and it's great to see Dunkirk coming back. I grew up here. I went to school at Dunkirk High and then left, like most people. So, Globus Relief is it's a nonprofit that is a medical resource avenue. We take those medical supplies that are no longer in use from inventory, dead stock, things that hospitals can't use anymore, and instead of throwing them out, we take them, we reprocess them, and we're able to fill a gap within the states on our local, across the United States, such as Puerto Rico, as well as international. We're in over 160 countries. We help out everybody from refugees to hurricane to any kind of victims. Our focus is filling that gap and providing the medical attendance to be able to take care of those children that are in need, especially when you're not able to get the medical resources that are involved within your own area. We take it for granted of everything that we have around here, and we really do not see what goes into the simplest things of providing for children that are in less than need, especially when it comes to medical, from saving. And you see someone in your major other nonprofits. We work really hard. We are a small company, a small organization. You can find us at www.globusrelief.com so you can see more of what we do. We have about 50 people that work. Everybody has an extra special place in their heart to really help. It's not a job to us, it's a passion. My job is finding the acquisitions and finding the products to be able to call people like Hector and say, hey, we have this, how can we help? And it's people like you, industries, nonprofits, manufacturing, distributors, hospitals, clinics, and instead of wasting that, we're able to all help and it becomes a win-win situation. So again, I'd like to thank everyone for having me back here. It is pretty neat to be here.
Thank you very much for coming. Thank you.
Mayor, anything else to add?
Oh, that's it. Thank
That's
you.
all? Okay. Number 6, communications from the public and petitions.
Notice of claim from Bonnie Orchard for alleged injury sustained from a fall on the sidewalk at 3rd Street and Swan Street on October 3rd, 2017.
Motion to refer this to the law department. Councilman Williams with the first, Councilwoman Chikawa with the second. Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams?
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto?
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez?
Aye.
Councilmember Chikawa?
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Vorship?
Aye. Reports of standing committees, boards, and commissions. Councilman Williams?
I wasn't gonna have much till we had some visitors, so, I guess first I'd like to, start out with asking maybe the city attorney, what process would we go about doing to do this 33 feet thing to the rest of the homeowners on Otter Street?
So, it includes entries of a few different issues. The one issue is the legal issue of the paper city street. And as I explained to him, we had this discussion at the planning board meeting last week or so ago. This council already voted on a resolution to transfer title of that paper street over to Erie Land Development, the group that's developing that Battery Point project. So the timing is off on that piece of what they raised. That's done. And they actually haven't filed that quitclaim deed yet, but it's in process. So that would take, council action in order to revisit that and revisit that issue. Now, 2 other issues, and obviously one, as Councilman at Large mentioned, Randy would have to address, and that's the drainage issue. And the other issue is that, so we're late in the process in terms of transferring title of Paper Street, but we're early in the process, and again, I defer to Rebecca and Al on this, on the site plan, in that we haven't got to that point yet where they've said what they're gonna do with that land. And I haven't seen, again, on the legal side, site plans, and those plans I don't believe have come before the planning board yet to see how that space is gonna be used. Because oftentimes in a project like this, and the gentleman was mentioning drainage issues in the old galvanized pipe, they provide opportunities to revisit some of those things and do some infrastructure work as part of the project. And often those costs can either be picked up by the private developer and or split with the municipality. So there's some opportunity there. Now, in terms of use of that land and how that fits into their site plan, that's something that I don't think we've crossed that threshold yet. My understanding, based on the limited discussions I've had on that project at this point, is they're just doing environmental reviews, and they've just had some funding and some pilots approved by the Chautauqua County IDA. I don't think they've come before the planning board as of yet that I'm aware of. Rebecca, can you speak to that?
They came for a preliminary site plan review, which we went through, and one of the pieces that they're going to be bringing to the next planning board is the specific plans for the drainage and how they might alleviate some of the drainage issues that are happening over there. In addition, for the road that we did a quitclaim for, this is only based on an access issue that they might need future access to the surrounding neighborhoods to create a better community within the city. And they're not intentionally going to be building on this property. It's all a matter of legal formality. So they'll be coming to their plans in January for the final site plan reviews to the planning board, and that's the opportunity that the planning board has to dictate what happens there. So again, everything will be presented in January at the planning board.
Randy, did you want to speak to the drainage issue?
Sure. If there's anything I learned tonight, it's that I know very little. And I'm glad the residents arrived and they educated me a little bit. I've got some other education tonight as well. And I take that education very seriously. I have to learn the situation. It's the first I've heard about it. I'd like to visit more neighborhoods and meet more people more often. I'm sure the council people for that ward would go with me. It's a joy to meet the people and learn that information. That being said, I have things to learn about that before I can comment intelligently. I've learned that lesson tonight, very humbly. and I will do that. I will come and meet you, and I will learn the situation before I can give you a good answer on that. That being said, I worked in the town of Ellicott for 10 years as code enforcement officer. We had a lot of development there, and we made sure that the development had a positive impact on the community and on the neighborhood. So we made sure that the development, sometimes development can bring, give you a vehicle to make things better for a wide area. And so obviously there's some problems there, and it's the first I've really got involved in this particular project. It's a development project. It's a planning board project. I will have Public Works look into that. We're honored to have a new engineering technician in Public Works who is one of your neighbors. And he'll help me do that. And we'll come up with some answers. I'm confident that we can study the problem and work toward some answers. So that's all I have for now. I've learned to keep it short, and that's it. But we'll work with you.
Right, then the only other thing that I had was with snow in the forecast, where are we on the leaf pickup? About done with that? You still got more to go?
We spent a little time, extra time yesterday and today picking up leaves. We've had good weather, and sometimes we've had to spend this time working on things that were not leaf colored. They were a little bit lighter colored. I won't mention the word. But because we haven't had to address that other item, Mike Propelia and the street department have been with Russ and the Parks Department. We've been picking up leaves as rapidly as possible. The residents put a lot of bag leaves out over the weekend. We tried to pick that up. Of course, we had recycling on Monday, so trying to do everything at once. But it's we're trying to get the leaves before they get under a plow. So we're making progress.
Okay, thanks. That's all I had.
Councilman Gonzalez? Oh, I'm sorry, Councilmember Model, my bad.
Randy, can you give us some clarification on the Lucas Avenue site?
Be happy to, Councilman. First, I would like to offer, again, an apology. 3 weeks ago, we had a Department of Public Works Committee meeting, and I was a little bit caught off guard with a question, a good question. I should have been more prepared for it. I go to the meetings for the cleanup of the LTEC State Superfund site that's being administered by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation. I clearly had some misunderstandings of the complications of that project. It will be developable to commercial and industrial standards. Will there be some chemicals left? Yes. Will there be some guidance from the DEC on how to develop it to commercial? They call it an environmental easement. That will specify what they can do and how, so those things aren't disturbed. So there's really, my mistake, it leads to correct the mistake is a positive, more positive toward the land. So I was a little bit negative in my understanding about what the land could be used because of the nature of some of the chemicals being left. I apologize for that. The DEC's done a good job to make that land up to commercial and industrial use. So I want to let people know it can be used for that. It's not, it'll take a step-by-step process to do that, but at this point, it's not developable for residential or restricted residential, but there is, between the spectrum of development, it's not zero. And I'm happy to report that I was wrong on that. I'm sorry that I misled you. It was not, when I took the job, I did not promise that I would not make a mistake. But I promised you that I would not make a mistake on purpose. The mistake was not intentional. I apologize. I'm glad it was corrected by the expert tonight.
Thanks, Randy. That's all I got. Thank you, Councilman Zamano. Councilman Gonzalez.
First of all, I was glad to hear from the person that gave the presentation in regards to that site, that we can use that site for, in the future, depending on the way we prepare it for different things. So it's a good sign that we will be able to use it for some type of commercial use or recreational, that after it's done properly, as he mentioned, so that it's not completely lost. that we will still be able to use that, so that's great. Randy, I also wanted to address and hope that you didn't forget, or don't forget about the snow fence on Washington Park, please.
I said right after we pick up the leaves, we're gonna put that snow fence
Sure you
up.
don't forget, you know, finish us still on. And as far as the people that mentioned in regards to that new development, that I'm pretty sure since the new development is gonna be using the same piping system, the same drainage system, that would probably be addressed. I'm hoping on that.
It can be addressed. In the town of Ellicott, like I said, we were able to take complicated situations like that and make everybody happy. That would be my goal, to help do that. So we're a team that's trying to make everybody happy. It can be
As much as
done.
we like to see the development, we also like to see the other people and be happy too.
Understand?
Thank you.
Yep.
The next economic development meeting will be on December 19th at 4 p.m. Please try to make it. If you have any questions, please bring them with you. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Gonzalez. Councilwoman Chicago?
I have nothing this evening.
The only thing I have, I had a couple others, but they were taken already. Mayor or Marcia, any update on the 2016 audit presentation? I know.
I'll let Marcia, I'll defer to Marcia.
Be finalized within the next week or so. We did get some questions when they sent in our AUD from the comptroller's office. She needed some clarification, basically on the due to and due froms. So I have been working on those, and I have those reconciled. So we should have everything to them. And so Nicole says probably within a week or so.
Okay.
She will have the final audit to us.
She'll have the final audit within a week or two. Okay.
Yes.
Looking forward to your presentation, Mayor. I don't have anything else beyond that. Any unfinished business? Seeing none, moving right along to pre-filed resolutions.
114, resolution authorizing the ratification of agreement between the City of Dunkirk and United Steel, Paper and Forestry, Rubber Manufacturing, Energy, Allied Industrial and Service Workers International Union, AFL-CIO, CLC, Union 2693 COD for January 1, 2011 through December 31st, 2020.
Discussion, Council? Councilman Vomano?
Yep, I'll be voting yes for this contract. I'm a co-sponsor of this resolution with Councilman Williams. This is a good contract for the city as well as the union. From what I'm hearing, it was a long, tough contract negotiations. I'd like to thank the mayor and his team for negotiating this contract. I'd like to thank 2693, the Steelworkers Union, and their negotiating team, which included Jim Briggs, Valerie Thomas, and John Taddeo. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman Vomano. Any further discussion, Council? Councilman Williams?
Like Mr. Bickert said, it's been 7 long years. Thanks, Jim, for getting up and speaking on behalf of the Steelworkers Unit here in the city. I also, as a co-sponsor, will be voting yes on this contract. Like Councilman Vomano said, I believe that it's the right thing for the city. It's good for the city, good for the employees, and hope they'll have a good contract for, I think it ends in 2020.
Thank you, Councilman Williams. Councilwoman Shikawa?
For me tonight, unfortunately, I'll be voting no on this contract, and that shouldn't be a surprise to many people in this room. It's often not a very good feeling to be the only person voting no on a contract. But for me, of the 4 unions that the city does have, only 2 of those unions currently have those employees participating in insurance payments, which makes 2 of the unions who do not pay into their insurance. I was very excited when the mayor called me and told me that they were ratified and that we'd be getting an agreement sent to the House. And every single point that you guys negotiated, I was okay with. And I want everybody to know that this isn't anything about anybody's job performance. This isn't about anybody particularly. Until I got to the last point on that negotiation was that there would be no insurance paid by the current employees. So for me tonight, my vote is no.
Thank you, Councilwoman Shikawa. Councilman Gonzalez?
I will have to agree with the councilwoman. I am very pleased with the contract, and I am. And I'll be voting yes for the contract, but I was a little concerned in regards that there were no intent for possible contributions to the, to the system also, so. But I will be voting for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Gonzalez. I was on the fence with this. Monetarily, the cumulative cost of this contract, it's a 10-year contract, for those of you that don't know, going back to 2011 and ending in 2020. The cumulative cost of this contract is very minimal. So I was satisfied from that perspective, especially since I'm chairman of the Finance Committee. But I also share the sentiments of Councilwoman Shikawa as well. And that's a major concern of mine. It's a major concern of probably every single person sitting in this room and across the country nowadays, is the cost of health care. The fact that many people don't contribute to health care is somewhat of an albatross nowadays when it comes to business and governance. So with that in mind, that's why I was on the fence. So although I will be voting yes on this contract based on the cumulative cost, I will let everybody know in this room and out in the public that going forward, now that we have all the contracts settled, my number one concern and my number one set of goals is to inspect the health insurance coverage and the payments into it going forward if I'm still sitting here in the years that more contracts come up. So I'm just saying it now. So, but I will be voting yes. So clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
No.
Councilmember at-large Voisin.
Aye. Resolution 115.
Resolution authorizing budget line modifications for fiscal year 2017.
Any discussion, council? Councilwoman Shikawa?
I just want to clarify that we got a new resolution for this one and that the bottom numbers have changed. It's not negative, it's positive.
Correct, there was a typo on the bottom. The 81,000?
Correct.
Correct, the 81,000 should not have the parentheses around it, so it was a typo. Any further discussion? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Voisin.
Aye. Number 116.
Resolution authorizing agreement to provide drug, alcohol testing, Lanford testing, and consulting.
Any discussion, council? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Voisin.
Aye. 117.
A resolution authorizing grant application Restore NY Communities Initiative.
Any discussion, council? Clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Voisin.
Aye. Seeing no new business, motion to adjourn. Councilwoman Shikawa with the first. Councilman Gonzalez with the second. Clerk, call the roll.
Question,
Yes.
just one piece of new business. Just to let the public know, I've been in talks with Mayor Rosas and with his blessing, and also in talks with some of the council members. I'm going to be convening a small working group to revisit the Ferramo plan, as I think that plan, all well intended, only focused on one aspect of the issue of properties that aren't up to code and properties that are essentially falling apart. And I think a more multifaceted approach is necessary. So I'm going to be asking a few folks from the administration, from the council, and from the public to meet with me in the coming months, probably starting post-holiday in January, to come up with a revised plan that addresses that issue from a few different angles. And I think a more holistic approach is necessary to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize, I skipped you. Let's try this again. Motion to adjourn. Councilwoman Shikawa, second. Councilman Gonzalez, clerk, call the roll.
Councilmember Williams.
Aye.
Councilmember Bamanto.
Aye.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
Aye.
Councilmember Shikawa.
Aye.
Councilmember at-large Voisin.
Aye. Meeting adjourned.
I thought she put it in there. I did not inspect it.